A memorial meeting held in Beijing to mourn former President Jiang Zemin. The memorial service live-streamed in Hong Kong with officials and the public paying tribute to the former leader. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. A memorial meeting was held in Beijing this morning to mourn former President Jiang Zemin, who died last week. President Xi Jinping called Jiang an outstanding leader who laid a solid foundation for China's development. As the clock struck 10 this morning, participants of the memorial meeting stood and paid a 3-minute silent tribute to Jiang Zemin in the Great Hall of the People. They include President Xi Jinping, who is also General Secretary of the CPC, party leaders, and the sorrowful Wang Yeping, wife of the former leader. Jiang Zemin passed away in Shanghai last Wednesday at the age of 96, with his body having been cremated on Monday. An urn containing the ashes, covered with the flag of the Communist Party of China, was placed in front of his portrait. Delivering the eulogy, Xi Jinping said Jiang Zemin was an outstanding leader with high prestige. He said the entire military and the Chinese people of all ethnic groups mourn the loss of such a great man. Jiang Zemin upheld and implemented the CPC Central Committee's correct decision on taking a clear stand against the turmoil, defining China's socialist state power and safeguarding the fundamental interests of the people, he added. Xi went on to say that the former president insisted on conducting the reform and opening up policies even when Western countries imposed sanctions against China during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Through hard work, he said, the party and people successfully stabilized the reform and opening up, thus laying a solid foundation for China's development. She also called Jiang's decision to step down voluntarily from the Chinese leadership an embodiment of his deep thoughts and long-term considerations he had towards the country and the party. She also urged the public to carry forward the legacy of Jiang Zemin and socialist development with Chinese characteristics. She noted, the party, the military, and all the ethnic groups in our country is going to be united closer around the CPC Central Committee. We are going to strive to make progress and forge ahead to comprehensively deal with a modern society with socialism and strike for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese people, he added. After the delivery of the eulogy, attendees of the memorial meeting bowed 3 times to Jiang Zemin's portrait. In Hong Kong, government ships blared their horns for 3 minutes this morning to mourn the death of the late leader Jiang Zemin. Many officials and residents alike watched the live stream of the memorial service. Christy Khan has more.
Across the country, citizens paid a final tribute to former Chinese leader Jiang Zemin in various ways. In Beijing, vehicles blared their horns for 3 minutes. In Hong Kong, ships from government departments, including fire services and police, also paid their respects with horns. This morning, Chief Executive John Lee led senior officials, including Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan, Financial Secretary Paul Chan, and Convener of Executive Council Regina Ip, in observing 3 minutes of silence for former President Jiang Zemin. All government officials would miss out on attending public entertainment events today. Such activities organized or funded by the government would be postponed or cancelled. Legislators, all standing, paid their respects and watched the broadcast on a large screen at the Legislative Council. LegCo President Andrew Leung led the lawmakers in observing 3 minutes of silence. After the memorial service, Leung told reporters that Jiang had made great contributions to the development of modern China and the world. All Legislative Council meetings and other activities in the morning were rescheduled so that lawmakers and staff members could watch the live broadcast of the memorial service. During this time, construction work outside LegCo had been suspended as well. Meanwhile, the members of the judiciary, including the Chief Justice Andrew Jiang, were present in the Court of Final Appeal to pay tribute to the late leader. Court services were suspended. The video screen of Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited outside the Exchange Square changed to pay respect to Jiang at 10 in the morning for 3 minutes. The Chinese Gold and Silver Exchange suspended trading for 3 minutes at 9 a.m., while staff were mourning in silence. All national and regional flags at different government premises flew at half-mast. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Meanwhile, members of the public mourned former President Jiang Zemin at various locations in the city where the memorial meeting was live-streamed. Residents expressed their fond memories about the late leader and recalled some of his greatest achievements. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Having paid several visits to the city during his leadership, former President Jiang Zemin is perhaps best remembered by most Hong Kong residents as the Chinese leader who oversaw the handover ceremony in 1997. Multiple venues across the city provided residents with a live stream of the memorial meeting in Beijing. At around 9:30 this morning, many mourners arrived to attend the memorial service of former President Jiang Zemin at the Sai Kung Changguano Government Complex. Students and volunteers folded paper lilies to offer their condolences for the nation's former leader. Scores of mourners, including students from the Catholic Ming Yun Secondary School and volunteers, solemnly listened when President Xi Jinping delivered the eulogy. Those who participated in the somber event recalled some of the former president's achievements.
One of the greatest achievements of former President Jiang is that he attended the handover ceremony of Hong Kong and Macau in 1997 and 1999, respectively. It means that China resumes the exercise of sovereignty of these two places that once being governed by foreign countries, and which signifies the growing power and status of China under the ruling of Communist Party. So I think as a Chinese, it is a must to attend this memorial service to pay tributes to this great leader.
He achieved a lot of things. One of the things is the most important, he improved our economics a lot, and both our GDP and also our living standard. And also he created the free representative, and also he improved the education system in our mainland China. So that's why I think he's a very great leader.
Besides government facilities, many shopping malls played the memorial service on large screen displays as residents observed a moment of silence. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The city logged 9,952 new COVID cases, around 440 cases more than yesterday's tally. The number of COVID patients requiring hospitalization is continuing on an upward trend. Given this situation, some emergency physicians revealed that newly infected people may face a wait of at least 7 to 8 hours before receiving authorization to be hospitalized. Timothy Lee reports.
With more coronavirus patients requiring hospitalization, pressure continues to mount on the city's public healthcare system. The number of hospitalized COVID patients has risen from just over 1,800 people early last month to around 3,000 now, an increase of 60%. Public health staff also noted a recent increase in medical personnel taking sick leave. That has resulted in a serious manpower deficiency. The lack of frontline healthcare staff has resulted in both COVID and non-COVID patients having to wait for 7 to 8 hours in some cases before they can receive authorization to be hospitalized.
In the past few weeks, we have seen increasing number of COVID-19 positive patients coming into our hospital. And most of them require hospitalization, because they are the elderly, the most patients, and with need for oxygen supply and things like that. Because of the long waiting time, the patients are stuck in our department. And just a few days ago, I saw a patient who was seen in the morning and waited in the observation ward to be admitted to the hospital. And then in the afternoon, around 6 o'clock, the patient get cardiac arrest. Definitely, this is not satisfactory.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong reported 9,952 COVID cases today. 725 of them were imported, the highest single-day tally during the fifth wave. 34 residents and 7 staff members from 26 care homes for the elderly and disabled tested positive for the virus. 2,472 cases were reported across 923 schools. 36 schools have suspended designated classes for a week. Authorities found 9 more cases involving the XBB variant and 2 cases of the BQ1.1 variant. Another 16 COVID patients have died, with the fifth wave having claimed the lives of 10,629 people so far. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The mainland reported more than 27,000 domestic COVID cases. As China optimized its pandemic control measures, some experts have called on residents to have enough flu medicine in store. But that call has caused many flu drugs, including ibuprofen, a drug to treat fever, to be out of stock in many pharmacies in Beijing. Meanwhile, more restrictions have been eased in the capital city. Residents entering malls, supermarkets, offices and the airport are no longer required to show proof of a negative nucleic acid test result for checking. But the requirement remains for residents entering internet cafes, bars, karaoke lounges, indoor gyms and elderly care facilities. That as Beijing logged another 4,666 new infections, while Guangdong province registered 5,541 cases. Britain's National Union of Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers, or RMT, said on Monday that it would let its members vote on whether to accept a pay rise offer. However, the union recommended they reject it and announced further strikes over the Christmas holidays. The union said it plans to go on strike between the 24th and 27th of December, likely signaling widespread travel disruption for passengers during the festive period. This after talks with train operators and Network Rail, which owns and maintains train infrastructure in the UK, ended without a resolution. The RMT said on Sunday that its management had rejected a pay rise offer of 4% each year in 2022 and 2023. The union's members now have a week to vote on the pay offer. Some 40,000 rail workers are expected to go on strike over December and January. In Britain, health authorities are warning parents to be alert for signs of strep A infections in their children. This as 6 children have died from an infection caused by Streptococcus A bacteria in the past few months. Tracy Furness has more.
The UK Health Security Agency issued a rare health warning late last week, urging parents to look at any signs or symptoms of the illness in their children. Dr. Ardiana Gagini, a consultant in communicable disease control at Public Health Wales, said parents should monitor the following symptoms:
sore throat, temperature, and a fine red rash. It is most common in children under 10 years old.
Streptococcus A infections are usually mild and can be easily treated with antibiotics. Illnesses caused by the group A strep bacteria include skin infection, impetigo, scarlet fever and strep throat. Strep A infections can become more serious, but this is rare. The UK government say its National Health Service is well prepared for such situations. Dr. Bharat Pankania, Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School, says strep A is more common in winter.
I appreciate that they've all come in around the winter time now, and of course it raises concern, especially post-COVID. But I really want to also take this opportunity to say to parents, it's got nothing to do with COVID. It's a bacterial infection, more common at this time of the year.
The UK Health Security Agency says it's investigating reports of an increase in lower respiratory tract group A strep infections, but says there is no evidence a new strain is spreading. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Still to come on tonight's news. Russia blames Ukraine for drone attacks on 2 air bases inside Russian territory. And Goblin Road voted Oxford Dictionary's Word of the Year. Welcome back. Russia has blamed Ukraine for drone attacks on 2 air bases inside Russian territory. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited a bridge linking his country with the annexed Crimean Peninsula that was damaged by an explosion in October. This as Russia continues to bombard Ukraine's vital infrastructure. Daniel Rao tells us more.
The Russian military said on Monday that its forces shot down 2 Ukrainian drones that attempted to strike 2 air bases in Russia. Russian Defense Ministry chief spokesman Igor Konashenkov said 3 Russian servicemen were killed by falling debris and 4 others were injured following the incident. The reported attacks took place at bases in Russia's Saratov region on the Volga River and the Dyagilevo base in the Ryazan region in western Russia. Russia's defense ministry added the attack on its bases was part of Ukraine's efforts to curtail operations of Russia's long-range bomber force. The Saratov Engels base houses the Tu-95 and Tu-160 nuclear-capable strategic bombers that have been involved in launching strikes on Ukraine. The Dyagilevo air base houses tanker aircraft used to refuel other planes in flight. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin drove a Mercedes across the Crimean Bridge linking southern Russia to the annexed Crimean Peninsula less than 2 months after it was rocked by an explosion. The 19-kilometer road and rail bridge, the longest in Europe, was bombed on October 8th in an attack Russia said was carried out by Ukraine. The explosion wrecked one section of the road bridge, temporarily halting traffic across the Kerch Strait. The blast also destroyed several fuel tankers on a train heading towards the Crimean Peninsula from neighboring southern Russia. Ukraine never claimed responsibility for the explosion. Russia's Federal Security Service said the attack was organized by Ukrainian military intelligence. During his visit to the bridge, Putin was shown asking questions about where the attack took place. He also walked along parts of the bridge to inspect sections that are still visibly damaged and spoke to construction workers who were conducting the repairs. Russia has been launching almost weekly bombardments of Ukraine in retaliation for Ukrainian attacks. On Monday, Russian missiles knocked out basic services in several Ukrainian regions. Ukrainian media reported explosions south of Kyiv in Cherkasy, Kryvyi Rih and Odessa. Electricity provider Ukrenergo said its facilities had been hit, triggering some blackouts. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said 4 people were killed during the barrage, as the country's air force claimed to have shot down more than 60 of the 70 missiles fired by Russia. Kyiv said early indications showed Russia fired 38 cruise missiles from carriers in the Caspian Sea and from the southern Rostov region. Daniel Rao, TVB News.
Cathay Pacific Airways flight attendants have criticized the airline for neglecting their demands. They are unhappy about a cut in subsidies and what they deem inappropriate arrangements of rosters. They would not rule out further action during the Christmas and Lunar New Year holidays. The flight attendants held a meeting at a hotel in Chimsha-Choi. Some aircrew members said demand for flights jumped since the city removed compulsory quarantine and introduced 3 days of medical surveillance. But the airline was said to have cut manpower for each flight and reduced long-haul flights, which carry subsidies. Others say there were no subsidies at all after working 10 short-haul flights back and forth. They hope to hold discussions with the airline, and the Cathay management says it will respond to their demands in next month's work roster. If you are self-indulgent and lazy in a way that generally rejects social norms or expectations, then you are in goblin mode. The term has been voted Oxford Dictionary's Word of the Year for 2022. First seen on Twitter in 2009, goblin mode gained popularity in 2022 as people around the world emerged from pandemic lockdowns. Oxford Languages President Casper Gradwell said the word resonates with people feeling a little overwhelmed by the past year. For the first time, this year's winning phrase was chosen by public vote. That's the news. Thanks for watching.